What do you think are the biggest ethical challenges that are facing AI, engineering development today? And now another one is, how do you compete? So AI development is important, but there are also enemy nations, enemy actors, threat actors that don't care about any ethics. They just care about using it as a weapon, right? So what do you think are the biggest ethical challenges? And how do you balance, how would AI in terms of growth, because you don't want to inhibit that growth either, because that's a core competency as a nation. Everybody's trying to the race to be faster, better models and better hardware, more data centers. What do you think? What are your thoughts
And
on that?
Gotham, I'll take that first, and then I'll ask the ladies to chime in. I think what you just said is actually where I would argue that that is going to become our biggest ethical dilemma. At Harvard Business School, one of the essays that we always had to write is, what is the biggest ethical dilemma you faced and how did you address it? So when you asked that question, it took me back, a couple of decades. Ethical challenges have changed as we have evolved, both in the tech world, as we've evolved in humanity, as we've evolved how we live, right? The idea of ethics has been, I feel, whittled and whittled and whittled, where something that would have considered an ethical dilemma was then no longer considered an ethical dilemma. For example, bribing someone in a foreign country. We know that Americans have broken those rules despite saying that they would never bribe someone in a foreign country. We've seen instances of that. So we've seen sort of a degradation of ethics, integrity, morality in the last couple of decades. So when you ask that question, what is our current biggest ethical dilemma? I feel like we need to take it out of context of today and just say, take timelines out of it. What would be the biggest ethical dilemma of all times? And I would argue that actually that is, let's go faster, cheaper, market dominance, more money, right? To me, making decisions for profitability are going to become the biggest ethical dilemma that a CEO faces. And I feel like we're all watching Sam Altman, how he's struggling with those ethical dilemmas. I mean, the moment he said you can get, what did he call it? Romantic conversations, or like he couched the whole porn thing under, oh, you can have now romantic conversations. None of us are stupid. Like we understand where you're going with this. We know that porn was the biggest moneymaker on the internet, right? That was the first proven business model. We know that. He's jumping into that bandwagon because he believes he's got to start monetizing. We know what the numbers look like from an expense standpoint. How every CEO and everyone who's watching this, please ponder this. The decisions we make today will change the future of humanity. And the decisions we make today for money, for profit, for growing fast are going to be what eventually leads to the demise of humanity, because AI will not give us options like internet does. In internet, there are ways you can mess around with ethical boundaries and not end humanity. But I don't believe that's the case in AI. I think the number of examples of potential ending of humanity scenarios is real, it's potential, and it all is dependent on what decisions CEOs are going to make in their companies. Not to dive too much deeper into, because that becomes a different conversation. Now, Wayfo has two products that we are looking at launching. One of them is policy, which is internal. So how do you make sure that your people don't make stupid decisions? How do you make sure that they're not having fun, romantic conversations at work on AI? What are you approving to be done? How are disclaimers going to be made? So there's an internal policy that every company should make. We've got a policy generator. And then there's the seal. So the seal is where we will bring in experts that will come in and do some kind of an audit. It's very similar to what Trustee did for the internet, but obviously within a certain box, to say, hey, we're verifying that you are not making decisions that are going to create the end of humanity. So again, for me, the biggest reason that we've launched Wayfo is for exactly this thing, which is how do we help CEOs stay on the side of ethics, stay on the side of integrity, of humanity's thriving through Wayfo's two products.